Victoria Crane held up the wilted roses before the investors as though they were garbage. "Do you really think Mr. Cross would touch something like this?" She threw the bouquet onto the service table and ordered security to remove Lena Morales. But by choosing to mock the soaked woman instead of examining the envelope hidden beneath the ribbon, Victoria did not know that she was about to unravel an entire ceremony worth millions of dollars. The moment a security officer reached for the bouquet, Lena grabbed the faded ribbon. "I promise to place it directly into Nathaniel Cross's hands. I will leave after I keep that promise." That morning, Morales flowers had been so cold that Lena could see her breath. She turned down the heat to save money, then hid an eviction notice beneath a stack of overdue bills before opening the shop. Eleanor Webb arrived carrying a long box. Inside were 12 roses freshly cut from the final surviving bushes inside the Rosehaven greenhouse. Several petals had brown marks, the stems were curved, and the leaves had grown thin from lack of light. "Do not replace a single flower," Eleanor said. "They must be delivered exactly like this." Lena knew nearly every variety of rose. She recognized the small diagonal cuts on the stems, a technique her father, Nathaniel Morales, had once used to keep the water channels from being crushed. "How did you enter the greenhouse? The electricity and irrigation system have already been shut off." Eleanor answered only, "I still have an old promise to keep." She explained that Amelia Cross, Nathaniel's mother, had planted those rose bushes with Rosehaven residents years earlier. That evening, Crossfield Development would announce a new project on the same land. The bouquet had to reach Nathaniel before he stepped onto the stage. When Eleanor paid, she accidentally placed 2 $100 bills on the counter instead of 2 $20 bills. Lena desperately needed every dollar to save her shop, but she immediately returned the extra money. "You paid too much." Seeing the older woman's hands trembling from the cold, Lena made her hot tea, wrapped her wet shoes, and personally bought her an extra bus ticket in case she needed it. Eleanor did not give a long speech of gratitude. She only looked at Lena as though she had just confirmed something important. She tied the 12 roses together with an old ribbon embroidered with the small letters AC. Beneath the knot was a wax-sealed envelope, with only one corner visible. Before leaving the shop, Eleanor repeated the instructions 3 times. "Do not replace the flowers. Do not give them to an assistant. And do not let the envelope leave the bouquet." That afternoon, Lena's old delivery van broke down during a Boston rainstorm. The temperature gauge dropped while less than 1 hour remained before the announcement ceremony. She could have returned to the shop, replaced the roses with fresh ones, and hired someone else to deliver them. But then the promise would no longer be intact. Lena wrapped the bouquet inside her coat, ran to the bus stop, then walked several more blocks. Rain soaked her hair and simple dress. Even beneath the coat, the petals struck against one another and began to droop. She called the hotel several times, but the communications department never answered. By the time Lena entered the lobby, music was already playing and reporters crowded around a stage beneath the words, "A New Future for Rosehaven." On the screen, the project rendering covered the greenhouse and Lena's flower shop completely. She tightened her grip around the bouquet. She now understood that the promise was not only for Eleanor. Victoria saw Lena's soaked clothes and wilted flowers and blocked her at the entrance. "Protesters are not allowed inside." "I own Morales flowers. This is the order number. You can call Eleanor Webb." That was Victoria's first opportunity to verify the truth. Instead, she looked at the time and said, "I will not interrupt this event because a flower delivery person does not understand professional standards." A security officer noticed the seal on the envelope. "Miss Crane, that symbol looks like the old Cross family seal." Victoria recognized it as well. Still, she waved him away. A fake seal does not turn dying flowers into an acceptable gift. That was her second opportunity to stop. Instead, Victoria brought Lena into the center of the lobby, where cameras were already pointed toward the stage, and raised the bouquet for everyone to see. Morales Flowers apparently believes it can make money selling something that belongs in the trash. Several people laughed. Lena heard them, but she did not defend her shop or explain that she had spent nearly all of her savings keeping the greenhouse alive after her father died. She said only, "These flowers belong to Nathaniel Cross." Victoria turned toward the trash bin. As she moved to throw the bouquet away, the ribbon slipped from her hand. The envelope fell onto the marble floor, and one corner of the wax seal cracked. At that moment, Nathaniel Cross entered the lobby with Victor. He stopped when he saw the recipient's name on the envelope. The slanted handwriting, the long stroke on the letter N, and the tiny mark beneath the letter T belonged to Amelia, his late mother. Nathaniel bent down and picked up the letter. "Where did you get this?" "Eleanor Webb gave it to me. She told me to place it directly into your hands." The cold expression on Nathaniel's face changed. Behind him, Victor tightened his grip around his briefcase when he heard Eleanor's name. "Nathaniel," Victor interrupted. "This is clearly emotional manipulation. The investors are waiting. Continue the program." Nathaniel did not accuse his uncle. He instructed security to preserve the bouquet, secure the lobby camera footage, and ask Lena to remain as a witness. Then he looked toward the stage. "This ceremony is suspended until I know whether we are building a new neighborhood or erasing an old promise." Inside the adjoining room, Nathaniel carefully opened the letter. Amelia referred to the Rosehaven Community Trust, 12 founding families, and a land registration number that had never appeared in any report Nathaniel had received. The final line made his hand stop. "Victor stood beside me when this document was signed. If you have never seen it, ask why." Victor immediately claimed the letter was fake, even though he had never touched or read it. Nathaniel entered the registration number into the city land records database. The screen loaded for several seconds, then displayed, "Rosehaven Community Trust, active, no termination recorded." He turned toward the uncle who had helped raise him after his father was gone. "If this trust is still active, why did your reports tell me that Crossfield owns all of the land?" Victor did not answer immediately. Outside in the lobby, 12 wilted roses rested beneath the stage lights. And for the first time, everyone present understood that they had never been only a gift. Victor remained silent in front of the confirmation that the trust was still active. Nathaniel did not force him to answer in the lobby. He invited Lena, Eleanor, Victor, and legal counsel into a private conference room, while ordering the bouquet, the letter, and all event footage to be preserved. "No one has been found guilty," Nathaniel said. "But from this moment forward, no record may be changed, deleted, or moved." Eleanor confirmed that Amelia had written the letter before her death. She had kept a copy under a promise to release it only if Rosehaven was transferred in violation of the trust conditions. "I remained silent for too long," she admitted. "I was afraid of Victor, and I kept hoping Nathaniel would discover the truth himself." Victor leaned back. "The trust once existed, but it became invalid when some assets were transferred to Crossfield. An emotional letter does not change that. Nathaniel gave his uncle the opportunity to disclose any related financial interests and voluntarily suspend the transaction. Victor insisted that he had concealed nothing. Independent trust attorney Marion Cho examined the registration number from the letter. After nearly an hour of comparison, she confirmed that the document remained in the land records and that no valid termination had ever been filed. Nathaniel immediately signed an internal order suspending acquisitions, demolition, and forced relocation. Subsidiary companies were prohibited from contacting residents during the investigation. Lena did not appear grateful. "Are you really stopping it or only delaying it to protect the project's image?" Nathaniel asked why the records had not reached him sooner. The question hurt her. "I learned about the letter this morning. Are you suggesting that I arranged my own humiliation?" Eleanor accepted responsibility for keeping the secret. Nathaniel remained silent for several seconds, then apologized to Lena for questioning her as though she were a suspect. The following morning, Lena took them to the Rosehaven greenhouse. The irrigation system had stopped working, the lights were off, and many rose bushes were dying. Inside Mateo's tool cabinet, she removed planting records, boundary maps, repair receipts, and weekly maintenance logs. In one corner were new fertilizer bags and a care schedule containing Lena's handwriting through the current month. Nathaniel realized that the abandoned property report he had read was not merely inaccurate. It had erased the work Lena and Mateo had continued doing. The records proved that the greenhouse had never been abandoned. After her father died, Lena used income from the flower shop to maintain it, accepted no salary, and never claimed private ownership. Nathaniel offered to pay the debts of Morales Flowers. Lena refused. "I do not want the truth to become a debt between you and me. Make sure no family is removed while this investigation continues." Nathaniel signed that promise in writing. Nadia Bennett gathered the purchase notices sent to residents. They carried 6 different company names but shared the same mailing address. Forensic auditor Ethan Park traced the money and discovered that all 6 companies received funding from a trust connected to Victor's son-in-law. Crossfield's records claimed that 72% of residents had agreed to sell. The actual files contained signatures from only 38%. Many documents merely confirmed receipt of a notice, not consent to transfer property. Nathaniel gave Victor a second opportunity to disclose the conflict of interest and cooperate. But even during the suspension, Victor secretly instructed the intermediary companies to persuade residents to sign additional documents in exchange for relocation assistance. Nadia recorded one of the calls and gave it to Marion. Victor was trying to manufacture consent after the project had already been suspended. Meanwhile, Victoria still believed Lena was creating trouble. She drafted a statement describing the dispute as an attempt to extort money using family memorabilia. Nathaniel ordered her to examine the evidence before releasing anything, but the draft still reached the press. Then Victoria discovered that the resident opposition report Victor had given her was missing several pages. For the first time, she realized that she might have become a tool for a lie. Instead of deleting the evidence, she backed up every related email. Ethan continued investigating and found an order from Victor's office to cut power to the greenhouse, even though Mateo's bills had already been paid. One email stated, "If the irrigation remains off long enough, the greenhouse will meet the standard for abandoned property." Victor claimed it was only a cost-saving measure for land that no longer had economic value. Eleanor placed a photograph on the table showing Amelia, Mateo, and the 12 founding families planting the first rose bushes. Nathaniel remembered something his mother had once told him. Nothing that is still alive belongs to only one person. Only then did he understand that the greenhouse was not decoration. It was the legal and emotional center of the trust. But the next discovery was even more serious. The system history showed that Victor's assistant had altered the resident records, changing the words "notice received" into "consent to transfer." Directly beneath those files was Nathaniel's genuine electronic signature on the overall acquisition approval. Ethan confirmed. The signature was neither copied nor forged. Nathaniel stared at his own name on the screen. He had read the summary Victor prepared, but never examined the appendices. He did not know the resident records had been altered, but his signature had still given the transaction's authority to continue. Lena placed the Rosehaven map beside the approval. You did not know our names, but your signature still had enough power to take away our homes. You are right, Nathaniel answered. Tomorrow, I will not stand before the city and explain that I was deceived. I will accept the responsibility that belongs to me. The Crossfield board suggested placing all blame on Victor to protect the company. Nathaniel refused. The city announced a public hearing before deciding whether to suspend the demolition permits, and Nathaniel would have to appear as the person who had signed the project approval. On the night before the hearing, Victoria sent Nathaniel an internal email that had never appeared in the official records. The sender was Victor. The subject line read, "Plan to remove trust conditions after demolition." Beneath it was a list of the 12 households that had to be displaced first. The number matched the 12 roses Eleanor had sent. Nathaniel looked through the conference room glass toward Victor. The uncle, who had raised him like a father, was standing in the hallway with his back turned. And for the first time, Nathaniel understood that the project had not merely been built on misleading reports. It had been built around a deliberate plan to erase the very people who had created his mother's promise. The next morning, the box containing the 12 wilted roses sat on the evidence table at City Hall. The hearing room was packed with residents, shareholders, and local reporters. Lena sat with Nadia and the Rosehaven residents, not beside Nathaniel as someone under his protection. Victor arrived with his attorney and was given access to the records and the right to challenge the evidence. Nathaniel stepped before the city council. He confirmed that Amelia had created the Rosehaven Community Trust and that the project had failed to meet the required level of resident consent. Then he placed the acquisition approval on the table. "This signature is genuine," he said. "I was given false information, but I created a system where a polished summary could replace the lives of hundreds of people. That responsibility belongs to me." Eleanor confirmed the origin of the letter. She admitted that fear had kept her silent, then told the council about Amelia, Mateo, and the 12 families who had planted the first rose bushes. Victor stood. "That letter is only a sentimental keepsake. It cannot stop a project that will create jobs, housing, and tax revenue for the city." Mary and Cho presented the registered trust documents. They required approval from 2/3 of the households, independent legal advice for residents, and full disclosure of every conflict of interest. The trust had never been legally terminated. Mateo's notebooks, receipts, and maps proved that the greenhouse had always been maintained. Nadia presented acquisition letters from 6 companies sharing the same mailing address, along with testimony from residents who had been pressured. Ethan Park showed that the companies received funding from a trust connected to Victor's son-in-law. Resident records had been changed from notice received to consent to transfer. Utility records and additional emails proved that Victor's office ordered the greenhouse power shut off, even though the bills were not overdue. A message appeared on the screen. If the irrigation remains off long enough, the greenhouse will qualify as abandoned property. Victoria Crane approached the microphone. She admitted humiliating Lena and preparing a misleading statement based on documents Victor had given her. "I chose to protect the image before checking the truth," she said. "When I discovered pages were missing from the reports, I preserved the emails. I am giving them to the council, and I accept investigation into my professional conduct." The final email appeared on the screen with the subject, "Plan to remove trust conditions after demolition." It listed the 12 households that had to be displaced first. The message proved that Victor had not simply forgotten about the trust. He had tried to remove the very people the trust existed to protect. Victor was given one final opportunity to speak. He argued that Rosehaven had deteriorated, that residents could not afford to restore it, and that everything he had done was intended to protect Crossfield's interests. "A city cannot survive on memories and wilted roses," he concluded. Lena stood. "We never opposed development. We opposed being erased from the plan." She presented an alternative that preserved affordable housing, space for small businesses, and restoration of the greenhouse using the surviving rose cuttings. Construction could still move forward, but residents would participate in the decisions instead of being treated as obstacles. After reviewing the evidence and allowing full response from all sides, the city suspended the demolition permits and rejected signatures collected through improper procedures. Coerced transactions were canceled. Families who had accepted money based on false information received free, independent legal advice and the right to reconsider their agreements. The Crossfield Board removed Victor and revoked his authority to represent its subsidiary companies. Evidence involving fraud, altered documents, and undisclosed conflicts of interest was transferred to the appropriate authorities. Victor left the hearing with his attorney to face a transparent legal process. Nathaniel remained chairman but accepted a new oversight system. Every project involving displacement would require independent review and community representation. The Rosehaven Community Trust regained control, and Crossfield could no longer sell or demolish the greenhouse on its own authority. The new development plan preserved affordable housing, small business space, and the greenhouse. Nadia represented residents on the trust board. Marion ensured access to independent legal advice. Ethan created a system for auditing conflicts of interest. Victoria was suspended and later lost her position as Director of Communications. Because she preserved the emails and cooperated with the investigation, she was not accused of participating in the financial fraud, but she was required to apologize publicly to Lena. "I judged you by your wet clothes and wilted flowers," Victoria said. "I was wrong." Lena did not accept a free store from Nathaniel. Morales flowers remained protected under the same rights granted to every business within the trust. The greenhouse restoration position was opened through a public hiring process. Lena presented her knowledge of rose varieties, an operating plan, and Mateo's record system. The community board selected her because of her qualifications, with transparent pay and the same oversight required for every employee. Eleanor became an honorary advisor without unilateral authority. She taught Rosehaven teenagers how to care for the plants. Nathaniel attended community meetings as a developer required to explain, listen, and answer questions. He never claimed that he had saved the neighborhood. 6 months later, the greenhouse reopened. The old roses did not magically become fresh again. Instead, new shoots grew from the surviving cuttings beneath the repaired glass roof. Along the walkway stood 12 rose planters, each carrying the name of one founding family. Nathaniel pressed one wilted petal into a frame, beside a copy of Amelia's letter, and hung it in the shared meeting room, rather than keeping it in his private office. His relationship with Lena developed slowly through months of working together, when neither owed the other anything. At the reopening ceremony, a reporter asked Lena whether Nathaniel had saved her flower shop. "No," she answered. "The letter helped us prove our rights. Mr. Cross simply did what a leader should do after realizing that his own system was wrong." Nathaniel stood nearby and did not correct her. After the reporters left, he looked at the rose bush Amelia had once planted. "Can you teach me how to prune it?" Lena handed him Matteo's gardening shears. "If you want to keep something alive, you first have to learn not to cut away the part you do not understand." Outside the greenhouse, new shoots moved gently in the sunlight. The 12 wilted roses never became fresh again. But the promise hidden within them helped save a community. Not through a miracle, but through truth, responsibility, and people choosing together to protect something worth keeping alive.